I would really like to welcome all of our amazing, fantastic, and beautiful guests. Welcome to the stage, everybody. Chonkakage, Queen Ash, Wolfie, Rodshark, and Bandana Hawk. Hello, 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 everybody. We're your host, Zagan.
Hi. You know us, though.
Yeah,
Don't
Zach
worry
and
about
Megan, you
us.
all already know who we are. But we're going to be here hosting a fantastic conversation on LGBTQIA2S+ triumphs and trials. Trials and triumphs, however you want to put that there. And also what allies can do to help with that. So Chonky, hello and welcome. Who are you?
Hello. I'm Chalky. My favorite cookie is the rectangular butter cookie with the chocolate on top that has like a shape. I'm going on script right now. I'm not good at
No, you're good. You're good.
And I am a streamer, as you know from the link in chat. I do variety games and ASMR, and I don't know. I have ADHD, so that's a lot of that drives what goes on, like my scatterbrainness and fidgetiness. Yeah.
No, yeah, that's
Yay!
perfect. Yes, thank you so much, Chonky. I appreciate you. All right, Ash. Who be this fantastic Queen Ash?
Hi, I'm Ash. I'm not a streamer, but I'm seen on the Variety Nortodo. My favourite cookie is white chocolate and honeycomb. And yeah, I'm here. Hi. That's all I got.
Oh, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. Wolfie. Who is the fantastic
Hello.
Wolfie?
Hi. So I am Wolfen Ridge, also go by Wolfie. My favorite cookie is the Snickerdoodle. It's the best, sorry. And I am a variety streamer on Twitch. We play everything ranging from like sandbox to strategy, JRPG games, just everything we can imagine. And we kind of strive and focus on wild positivity. Basically, we're chaotic, but it's all about positivity in the channel and just being inclusive for everybody. So it's a lot of fun.
Thank you so much for being here, Wolfie. I appreciate you so much. Shark,
Thank you.
Rod Shark, Slumber. Who are
That's
you?
me. Hello. It's very nice to meet you all, everyone on the panel and chat as well. My name is Rod Shark. You can call me Rod. You can call me Shark. Or you can call me Slumber. That's usually what I say whenever I get raided. I am a variety streamer. But I have specific days for specific games. Like, this is a new thing. Tuesdays I'm learning how to speedrun Celeste. Wednesdays I'm doing Kaizo Mario levels. And Thursdays specifically reserved for Nier because Replicant came out. I'm a big fan of the series. So I need a whole day devoted to it. My favorite cookie is the oatmeal cookie. I know that's divisive. I know people have opinions. It's still my favorite. And it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
No, thank you for
Thank
being here. I
you.
really appreciate it. You're welcome. And last but not least, Bandana Hawk. Who are you? What is your story? What you
Hello.
got?
It's me, Bandana Hawk. Well, my story begins in the 13th century. Now, I'm Bandana Hawk. I'm a variety streamer. I do anything and everything. I talk a lot. I wear bandanas and I have a mohawk. That's pretty much all you need to know. My favorite cookie is Snickerdoodle or what do I say, molasses. And yeah, I'm just here to vibe and have some great conversation.
Well, awesome. Thank you all again so much for being here. I really do appreciate it. And if y'all don't mind, I'd like to kind of start jumping into the questions that we have at hand here about the community. I think one of the things that I think is always interesting for a lot of people is how do you address properly the LGBT community, right? Because there's so many different ways of saying it. LGBTQ, LGBTQIA2S+, LGBT. So like, is there a better way to go about even just addressing that community in general? Or is it always the full acronym? Rod, go for it.
Yeah, I think this is a great question because after being in the community for a while, you start noticing that the acronym itself changes. Like, as conversations are had more more letters or numbers are like added to it, and so it gets kind of confusing, not just for straight allies, but also for us LGBTQIA identifying people. Oftentimes when I'm talking about the community on social media, I'll just default to using like a pride flag emoji, because I feel like it encompasses all of us really neatly in an image, and it saves on characters. But like in real life, I always default to two things. Like if the person that I'm speaking with, I know is comfortable with me using the word queer, I will use queer as a word. I know I have had friends in the past who have issue with that word because it's used against us, you know, as we're growing up as like a negative thing or like to insult us. And so even though there's like a reclaiming going on with the word queer, if somebody's uncomfortable, like it's kind of like the number one rule. Like if someone's uncomfortable with what you're saying, like change.
Yeah. Oh, of course.
So I'll just default to whatever they're comfortable with, but that's generally how I navigate it.
Okay. Yeah. Wolfie, I was going to say, go ahead, because I know you had your hand up with the same one. Go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, it kind of depends on the situation. If I'm communicating with some of my closer friends, I'll just say like, hey, the LGBTQ community or LGBT community. If I'm in a public stance or making public statements in order to make sure that I am able to encompass everyone, I will say the LGBTQIA2+ community, or I will also sometimes use the rainbow emoji. So it kind of depends on the situation because it's very organic. In its usage, because it's constantly growing and changing when we learn new understandings, and we want to make sure we're inclusive of everybody. So once people have a previous understanding of who I'm addressing and who I'm including, I will shorten it a little bit just so that I can more easily get a message across, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so because that was something that I kind of struggled with, right, when I was first trying to like, okay, let me understand this community more. Let me figure out what I can do to try and help out, right, as an ally, because we don't identify within the community, but we are allies thereof. So it was one of those things that like, you know, how do we have a conversation that properly includes everybody that identifies on the spectrum of gender and sexuality and everything else that's out there. And so maybe would one of the better ways to be able to do it, because I obviously, right, this changes so much, kind of sounds like maybe using like pride or like that pride flag. Is that some way of being able to do that, or is that maybe not inclusive enough?
I wouldn't necessarily say not inclusive enough. I would probably say you will want to make sure that you have a previous understanding that you are an ally of a person, rather than just trying to like all of a sudden just shorten it into an emote or an emoji, because then it almost seems some people can see it as, if they know that you're not actually a member of the community, as just a lazy way to just kind of address us, which those of us who know you know for a fact that that's not what it is. But other people not seeing you, you may want to actually say, hey, this is the community. And then further on in, basically as an additive throughout, you can use a rainbow rather than having to use the emote several times.
Okay. No,
that makes sense.
Okay. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to add or say? Otherwise, we've got tons of questions here we can go with today.
I just want to say a big retweet to what Wolfie said. Especially because like when people who don't know you have to form a first impression of you, like they expect, like putting in the effort to write out the whole acronym, like it leaves a good impression because they know that you care about the effort. So,
okay, no, thank you for that. So I think one of the things that kind of goes on with that is like how important are pronouns to all of you, and like what's a way that somebody can try and understand how to properly address somebody,
or like how to ask,
or like that's a really good way. Like how can we ask to make sure that we are using the right thing, right? Because you never want to
like making someone feel like singled
I
out
can speak
or
on this.
awkward.
Okay, yeah, go for it, Chunky.
Well, I would say that, well, first off, pronouns are very important, I think, because nobody wants to be like misgendered. It just does not feel good at all. And the best way to ask is just to say, hey, what are your pronouns? Like, I feel like that's like just being straightforward and like getting to the point, because going around it is like kind of uncomfortable, because it's like, I don't know, it's just, it can be a little confusing. So just like asking, because everyone, or I think at least most people that I know, if you just ask them, they will happily tell you. It's way better than getting misgendered. So
okay. Perfect. Yeah, Wolfie, what's up?
something to kind of tack on with that, what I loved that you said is, what are your pronouns? What I hear a lot are, what are your preferred pronouns that a lot of people will use. And the reason why we're trying to take the preferred out is because that means that's a preference of what you have. And so even if you prefer something, doesn't mean it's going to happen. So by saying what are your correct pronouns or what are your pronouns means it's not a preference, it's who you are. So it validates a person by not saying preferred pronouns because it makes it sure that you know, hey, we are going to recognize and acknowledge who you are rather than just treat it as some preference you may like.
Okay. No, thank you for that. Because there's so much terminology sometimes. So, and that's why I want to apologize up front that if I ever say something that doesn't have the correct connotation, please tell me right off the bat. Right?
Please correct us.
Yeah, and I think that's an important thing. I think for as allies in general, and I think a lot of the people that are out there, that we need to be open to feedback and criticism to make sure that we do things the correct way. So thank you for telling us that, because that's something that we can try and do going forward. Actually, there's something I need to change in my Discord because of that. So thank you. That's a great way to put that. So how do you all address like a group of people? Like I'm trying really hard right now to take hey guys and stuff like that out of my vocabulary. And I'm trying to use like friends or gang or something like that.
I go with, hey buddy.
Yeah, like when I'm talking to one-on-one people, one-on-one person, I always say buddy or y'all. Yeah. But I was curious, like what do y'all do? I had to stop myself. I started almost doing it. You go for Rod.
Yeah, I'll use y'all. Y'all's the easy one. It's so easy to like just say without thinking. Peeps is another favorite because it's just people, but like it's cute. It's everyone, hey everyone. Like those are like my 3 go-tos, really. In case that helps.
Okay. Yeah, it was something interesting because just trying to get into it more and more and really trying to take some of those type of words out of my vocabulary. I'm like, wow, it's really hard to take 27 years of habit and just pull it out of the head there. So it's just, I like to just have that conversation just to see.
I mean, if it makes you feel any better, I'm non-binary and I still have I still sometimes cling to gendered words by accident and I have to refresh and switch it out. So it's sometimes a process, I think, for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that Chonky said this because I feel like from people who are outside of our community, it might seem really like we just realize who we are one day and it's just like we get it correct forever and it's not, there's no adjustment period, and it's like that's couldn't be farther from the truth. Like we're always learning about ourselves individually and we're always getting it wrong as we adjust to what we want, it's kind of just you learn, and seeing the effort of learning, is really important alongside that. So
okay. Yeah, same here. Oh, sorry.
No, you're okay. I was I see Hawk was ready to go. So I was like, what's up?
I was just gonna say something that I've become more aware of with my use of language is as I've tried to use they them as a default because it's very easy. They them is the default because especially if you don't know someone's gender ahead of time. I've found that my brain automatically defaults to some gender if I don't know based on the situation. So something that I had to work out of my vocabulary is reading a story about, I don't know, some profession, like a construction worker, and then automatically having him appear in my head when I'm that was never mentioned. That was never given to me. That was an assumption that I made that I've had to relearn. Because gender itself is this social construct. So you do end up having these socially influenced assumptions built into your brain over the years of just assuming certain things as male, certain things as female. Clothing has no gender. Clothing doesn't have a gender, or it shouldn't. But yet you do see like some clothing, or you used to see some clothing and think, oh, that is male, that is masculine, that is feminine. These words we're trying to phase these out, because ultimately it is harmful to have someone not identify with a gender identity, but still like something that is attributed with that gender identity. Like men can wear dresses. That's absolutely okay. That's great. And like, men shouldn't feel bad about wearing dresses, because they shouldn't feel like society is staring at them in a specific way and putting their assumptions on them when they're just trying to express themselves how they feel they want to.
Yeah. Okay. No, thank you for doing that, because like that's always something that's, you know, even with like in my work, because I have I would say a fairly conservative workplace, that's definitely getting better. But like something that maybe this is one of the things as allies and other people can try to do is I put he, him in my my signature. So every time it goes out, people know that like, hey, look, I'm there. I get it. And I've never seen anybody else back with it yet. But like we were talking about it the other day, I was like, it might help somebody out there who's trying to figure everything out with it. And I was like, I think that's a really powerful thing to do. Like work's never told us to do that, you know, or stuff like that. But it's just something you can do that's just maybe really minuscule to just try and like, okay, hey, you don't have to assume something. I'm telling you what this thing is right off the bat here. Here you go. You know, kind of like we were talking about earlier.
Normalizes it. Sure.
Yeah, exactly. You know, so that way, like people are just like, oh, maybe I can, you know, sign with it like this. And then it just, I think it opens up that type of conversation with others that are out there that maybe.
Because I know my work talked about doing it, and some people were like, well, I don't really understand why. And I came at it from the point of, if it helps one person feel comfortable in this entire 1,500 employee company, then it was worth taking 2 seconds to type out, you know, she, her.
Yeah, and you literally create a signature and it
cost me nothing, and it took me seconds of my life.
Yep, kindness.
I mean, my favorite thing is when people like suggest that it doesn't make sense to do it, and then you like use the wrong pronouns on them. They're like really upset. It kind of proves the point. Like nobody wants the wrong pronouns used for them. You know, like if you go by he, him, and someone says she about you, like that's not gonna make you feel good. You know, so.
Yeah, that's a good. I like that tactic. I'm gonna use that next time somebody is like, "Who cares?" And I was.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like explicitly. I know some people are like, "Oh, well, if someone misgenders me, I'll misgender them back to prove a point." And like, I personally don't like subscribe to that. But I'm more like, if you can explain, like, hey, like, wouldn't you not like being called the wrong pronoun? Like, I feel like there is like a parallel. I don't know about doing the same behavior, because I feel like that would be kind of. I don't know. It rubs the wrong way, I think, but.
I think it's one thing, right? Like if you try and correct somebody who does something wrong, you can tell a lot by how they're about to react to the criticism you just gave them. If they go, "Oh, my apologies," and then, "Oh, okay, cool," they're not trying to be a dick, you know. But then as soon as if they're like, "Well, what is it?" Oh, okay, you're one of those, you know, and then you can just wipe that conversation from your brain and move on. So, but no, that's good feedback there. So this is something that I don't know exactly how to properly ask this, so I'm going to try and phrase it the best way I can. For those that are out there that are struggling or just trying to understand who they are, what was something for you that kind of that made you like realize like, oh, this is how I identify, or this is who I am. Like, what was the process for you to understand who you were? Maybe that's the right way to ask that question. Yeah, Ashlyn.
The thing, I really struggled with coming out as bi for a very long time, and I did it the dumbest way. I was like 12 or 13, and I came out as a joke to see how people would react around me, and that's dumb. I would not recommend that, but I got a positive reaction, so I felt more comfortable coming out to people in a normal way and kind of being like, okay, that wasn't a joke. Would everyone be okay with that? And then as I got older, I just kind of was like, if someone asks, I'll come out. But other than that, it's like a personal thing. It's for me, like, my sexuality doesn't affect anyone else unless I'm attracted to them. So I think the experience is completely different for everyone, but to me, it's just if someone questions it or I'm dating them, then I'll be like, yeah, I'm bi. But other than that, I'm like, yeah, it's no one's business. Like, yeah.
No, that's understandable. Excuse me. Wolfie, go ahead. Sorry. You had your hand first.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I will say for me, I had one of the classic. I came out to my family, and their immediate reaction was that it was the end of the world because of religious reasons, and they got me a psychologist to try to fix me, and the conversion and everything like that. So and they specifically got a psychologist from our church to do the counseling. And so I have and had struggled with severe depression over who I was, to the point, I do want to put out a huge trigger warning for everybody before I say anything else. So I want to make sure that everybody's prepared and in a good place. And I'm sorry for going into a deeper topic this quickly, but to the point where I did struggle with suicidal ideation, to the point where I was hospitalized a few times. One of the greatest things that I ever learned and did was I ended up moving out on my own for a little bit. And that was a struggle on its own, but recognizing that I didn't have the negativity all around me constantly telling me, no, you're not who you are, we need to change you, is something that was really beneficial for me. And it's one of the hardest things to do, but it's just like with basically a tree. If there's one part of the tree that's killing, that's dying off, it's going to kill the rest of the tree. You have to cut it out. And not saying that everybody's interactions is different. Everybody should do that in any way, shape, or form. It's what happened for me in my life. And luckily my parents are coming around and some things like that. But there comes a certain point that in order for me to get better in my own way and come to terms with who I was, I had to do my own soul searching and recognizing the hard part. I got the therapy, and I worked with a therapist to build up who I am as a person. And the friends, whenever I came out to them, they're like, well, that's terrible, you need to get changed, are no longer friends. And it's the hardest thing I have ever done in my life, but it's what I ended up having to do for me. And it's still one of the hardest things I've ever done, but at the end of the day, it's what I needed to do.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I was like, I'm sorry to even hear that you had to go through it, because like this is why I wanted to have these type of conversations, because this is stuff that, you know, I've never dealt with any of that, right? And I want to understand from other people's point of views and perspectives of like, these are the struggles that we have to go through sometimes, or what other people are going through, because I'm sorry to hear that, but I'm happy to see that you're here with us today having a great conversation.
Thank you for sharing that.
So thank you. I appreciate it. I wasn't sure if any of the others had anything they wanted to say, or otherwise, yeah, Rod, go for it.
Yeah, I had a very similar experience to you, Wolfie, as well, with my own family and religious upbringings and removing friends from my life. So I completely sympathize. And like the point that I want to contribute would be on like the gender side of things, which would be like, be open to being wrong, like, or like just experimenting instead of trying to find the perfect word right away, because it's not until like you start dabbling a little bit in like how you identify and how you express yourself to people that you start seeing what really fits. For a while, I was like cisgendered, and then I experimented with non-binary because I had this overall feeling of like, even though being like he, him, like male, like presenting is really easy, it's not exactly like it fits like home. Like, I know at least growing up in school, like boys are so happy to be boys. Like they love they love adopting like whatever seems to fit that sort of like boy mentality of like space, soccer, sports, that I never really clicked with. And then first I thought it was just because I was gay, but like there are plenty of gay cis male who love sports, it wasn't really that. And then, so I experimented with like non-binary for a while, and then it still didn't feel like it fit. And then one day I was just watching a streamer who they said that they identified as ambisgender. And I was like, what is this word? And then I look it up, and cisgender are people who are apathetic to gender in general. Like a pronoun never really has seemed to fit a certain like look or identity doesn't seem to fit. It's more like a lack of feeling towards gender. And I was like, this is exactly what, like, this is exactly what I've been experiencing for like my whole life. And like, I just didn't even know there was a word. And like a lot of people that were in my circles didn't even know that word either. You know, it was just so, I guess, niche for us. And then like, I just went from like, okay, I'm not non-binary. I'm this, I'm cisgender. And everyone's like, yeah. And it was like, if I had never just taken the plunge to call myself non-binary first, like I probably wouldn't have kept looking for an answer or like kept feeling uncomfortable. So like, there's like a level of allowing yourself to be wrong, to like say the wrong thing for a while just to get to the right.
Okay. No, thank you. That's a really, I think, important thing, because it's like, I feel like so many people are like, you get one shot. It's kind of like
you have to get it right the first
time. And that's almost how I look at it. Like, you know, we put so much pressure on people, like when they're going to college, you have to pick the right major right off the bat. And it's like, I changed my major before. I'm happy to admit that. Didn't waste any of my time. In fact, I learned a whole bunch. And I think that's such an important concept. I just use it as an analogy for people who are like trying to understand who they are, of like, you might not get it right the first time, and who cares?
I think that's an important point, because I remember watching this one YouTuber who was going through like questioning about themselves and was like, I'm bisexual, I'm transgender, and just every time they'd, you know, give themselves like, this is who I am, people would just make fun of them and be like, you don't know what you are. You're just a cisgender white girl that has no idea what she's talking about. And I just remember feeling so bad, like, this person's trying to figure this out and just trying to be open and honest with themselves and with their viewership, and just getting just railed for it.
And maybe this is an interesting kind of segue into the topic of like how to handle like trolls / like intolerant people a little bit. Like, I don't know if anybody has any real things. Everyone's like, oh my God. I don't know who went first on that. You two can Rochambeau for it. But well, I'll go with Chunky. Chunk, did you have your hand kind of flagging up there first?
I did, but I feel like I was after Rod, so as long as Rod's okay with it.
Yeah, I can be quick.
Okay.
Yeah, you go.
Go for it.
Because it's 2 points, but they're quick. The first point, I actually got from a YouTube video from a person that I love watching, but she was like, some things you just have to figure out in public, right? Like, like this is a response to like what Megan was saying. Like, there are just some things where you don't get the privilege of just taking it home and experiencing with it in private and then coming out and be like, this is it. Like, you just have to like sort of figure it out in public. And so like gender is one of those things. And like by doing that, you're going to get trolls. You're going to get people who probably are similarly uncomfortable, but they've decided to attack other people instead of figuring it out themselves. My advice is more so like to help you sort of figure out your own way of dealing with it. Because like, first figure out, do you want to be the person who always has the conversation, or do you want to conserve your energy? Like, figure that answer out first for yourself. And then develop a strategy from there. Like, I am not always up for having a conversation. I'm not always up for a troll coming into my stream and being like, are you gay? And me being like, I'm just not. Not today. And so I'll just be like, I'm very fast with the ban, because like I've just decided like I feel a lot better if I ban first and then I'm wrong, and then we figure that out like eventually, instead of like giving somebody my time and oops, like they really pissed me off. Like I'm like, hammer first. That's my answer.
Okay. I was like, I'll let Chunky go ahead, and then I'll get to
I was gonna say, I have, that was good. I have a good follow-up for that. First I want to talk about the idea of like having to, you know, figure things out publicly, because like I never actually came out. I don't think anyone who knows me, I don't think any of y'all realize, but I like never came out. I just one day like put my identity somewhere and just like let it exist.
Yeah, I remember going to Twitter one time because you posted something, and then I saw it and I was like, Okay, cool.
Yeah, I
And
don't
went
even
about
know
my day.
exactly how it went, but I was just like, okay, I'll just like put it there. I don't really feel like talking about it, so, so that happened. And then with trolls, like, yeah, 100%. If someone comes in and just like asks about your sexuality, like, what gives them the right? Like, it makes no sense. Like, what, like you do that to this is the first thing you're gonna say to someone. So that's an insta ban to me. There's no good excuse in my opinion. And yeah, it depends if I'm like emotionally available to like kind of like talk back to the troll, because I like to fight. So I'm gonna be honest.
I've seen it.
Yeah, no, you've seen it. Like I will go after these people, and I will like dig them a grave if I have to, and then ban them because I just love to see it get worse. And like, and I like to like make a bit like I use them as this kind of like example. That's how I feel. Like I'll like explain why they're wrong, and then I will just like ban them, and then they're gone forever. But like obviously a lot of people may not have that like emotional energy, and that is also fine, and it's not anyone's job, like it's not marginalized people's jobs to educate, right? So if you are experiencing trolls and you don't have the emotional capacity to deal with it, just ban them. Like don't even give it a second thought, because if they want to get better, they can do the research themselves. Like you don't have to teach them or explain anything about your identity. So
Okay. Yeah, Wolfie, go ahead. Yeah. I know you're looking, yeah.
Sorry, yeah, I have fortunate enough not to have had Twitch trolls come at me for anything like that. But in real life, I have several pride shirts because I am me. I'm going to be who I am, and I'm going to be happy with it. And I will have people that will literally come up and start harassing me or follow me around, or they'll try to look me up on other social medias, do things like that just because I am who I am. And the way that I kind of handle them is a few ways. I'm either like saccharinely sweet to them, which irritates them to no end and makes them even more angry. Or I'll just completely ignore them, and whenever they start looking me up, I honestly take solace in the fact that I'm living in their mind rent-free. Like, they are devoting energy and time of day into the fact that I exist, and I'm not what they wanted as a human being, even though I have no idea who they are and they have no idea who I am. And so I enjoy the fact knowing that they are spending their life's energy on thinking that they can make my life hell, and I'm just going about my day happy as can be. And so for me, that's honestly the greatest revenge I have ever gotten on anybody that wants to troll me, is just the solace in the fact that they're miserable thinking about me.
Okay. Hawk, I wasn't sure if your hand was going up at one point.
I think it might have been. I don't know, but I'll talk on it anyway. I trust, like, when my general rule when it comes to my stream is I trust the vibes. When someone comes in and the energy they're giving me is off, I immediately have people who are just kind of like watching, and Rod will tell you he's so quick to ban. He's ready. Like the second someone says something like nonsensical in a disruptive way, where it's just kind of like, okay, what's your angle here? Rod's like, nah, they're gone. I've had a few people who come in with like stuff like, are you gay? And I'm like, what tipped you off? Are you? Yes, 100%.
Was it the love shirt?
Wait, was it the pride love shirt? I don't know. It might be. But for the most part, recently, I've been getting trolls, and this is the more disturbing thing to me, is that I've been getting trolls who fixate on the fact that I put Black Lives Matter in my title. And I have a thing that comes up in chat that talks about it. And they come in with stuff against Black Lives Matter, with like All Lives Matter. And I'm like, why? Yeah. Why is this like, I've had way more trolls when it comes to that than my identity. And I just can't even wrap my head around why someone would be so hateful and obsessed to come into someone's stream and just start spouting this sort of nonsense. And they don't last long because they're blatantly obvious. And like I said, like I've got a team of piranhas like, ready to fight. It's just stressful.
Yeah. Because like this is something that like this is something that I've seen on my stream. Just for having pronouns in like my bio, or I have like the pronouns exclamation thing so people can physically make their pronouns so it shows up in my chat. I remember I had one person come in and they just sent emojis. And I was like, what is this? It was like the pride thing with like a nay vote. And I was like, I was like, all right, I'll entertain this for a second. It's currently 7:45 in the morning. I got time for a troll. And so I was like, okay, let's have a conversation, buddy. What's going on? And then they just kept reposting it again. I was like, and so I was just like, I just had a whole like thing about Pictionary with him, like, oh, vote yes for absolutely. Where do I sign? You know, I just like kept going on it, and then they finally were like, how can you? And I was like, bye, and I got rid of them. They sent me a bunch of stuff afterwards, and I'm just like, how? Honestly, I pity that.
I can't,
miserable.
I can't believe the audacity of some people, because it's not like people wandering your stream going, hey, are you straight? That's like the audacity. I just like, what? Why do you think that's okay?
Yeah.
Just ask people. That's the first question out of your mouth.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
it's
if I
kinda-
recall, that's the first thing I said to you when I came into your stream. I rayed in and just said, "Excuse me, are you straight?"
Yeah, we're sitting here
Okay, so it happened
having
once.
yeah, we're sitting here having a charity stream, and you're like, excuse me, what do you? You know, and I'm just like, Hog, who is this person? And yet you've stuck around anyways, so it's been fantastic. So, but no, I just like, it's such a strange thing, because like y'all are right? Like the first question you ask somebody when you come into something, like, are you gay, are you queer, whatever else, and it's like, do you go into everybody else's stream going, are you straight? Are you
copy pasta?
Yeah, are you American? Are you Scandinavian? Like, where are we? What? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. And so that's why it's just like, and the hammer is down, and we're done.
Yeah.
But that's just,
I
I
have
don't
a
know.
friend. I'm not gonna like name them just because
Yeah.
they're not here right now.
Yep,
but
understood.
they're also a streamer. She's a lesbian. She has short hair, and someone literally came into her chat and was just like, "You're a boy," and like insta banned them. But I was just like what? Even that
Yeah.
doesn't make sense. I'm like, what's the like? What if she was a boy, and then what? Like, I don't know. Like, what's the point of that? I just
Thank
don't
you
get
for
it.
coming in and telling me who I am.
Yeah. I'm
I
like,
appreciate
okay,
the
cool.
feedback.
Yeah. If I didn't already know who I was, cool.
Thank you for
Yeah,
that.
thanks. That's fine.
I really.
Yeah, the audacity of that bitch.
The things you learn about yourself on the internet.
I know. Man, the internet can't lie, right?
You can't post lies on the internet.
Yeah,
We already established
can't
that.
post lies on the internet. Anyways, I was like, before we go off on another tangent with that one there, I think maybe something that I kind of want to flip the table a little bit, right? Because we've been kind of talking about some of what I'd talk about is like the trials of kind of being a part of this community. What are some of the great things about the community? Like, what are some of the things that y'all have seen that are like, hey, this is a super positive thing about this community and stuff like that? I want to kind of flip it around and like look at it from a positive viewpoint. I was like, I'll start with one while everyone's thinking about something for a second. I've seen a lot of people come together and just, and I'll be honest with it, I think it's really cool that so many people are just like, hey, I now feel comfortable to just say, this is who I am. Mm-hmm. You know, like I remember I had a conversation with somebody a while back about like, they're not a friend, they're not an acquaintance, they're just somebody who I talked to at work and immediately left them after this conversation. But they're like, I don't understand why there's so many more people that are suddenly out and whatnot. I'm like, because people are comfortable being who they are by a super supportive community and whatnot. Clearly,
Crazy
you must not be
concept.
supportive and comfortable in your own skin if you think you have to attack others. And they just looked at me and like, excuse me.
Yeah, people do not take.
And I was like, your badge number is 822245, right? And your supervisor's this person? They're like, you know, and kind of walked away type thing. And I was like, get out of here. I think a super important thing about it is just like there's so many people that have each other's backs
Yeah.
that are out there. Just being like,
I'd
hey,
agree.
be you. Do you. Be the best person that you are. And I think that's a super important thing about the community, personally. I see, yeah, I was going to say, Wolfie, I see your hand is up. It's okay.
I tabbed out of it, my bad, and I'm using
No, that's
push to
okay.
talk. Anyway, so I'm gonna put out another huge trigger warning for this one. I do apologize. So it does start out as a trial, but it turned into one of the most magical moments I have ever had in the LGBT community. From 2015 to 2016, I lived in Orlando, Florida, and I was actually there for the Pulse nightclub shooting, which was one of the most horrific events of my entire life. The day after, in the Orlando, one of the major parks that we had, we were actually holding a huge vigil and ceremony for it, and there was thousands of people there, and there wasn't a cloud in the sky. It was absolutely beautiful, and all of a sudden, a downpour out of nowhere hit. And the number of people that were running, grabbing umbrellas, sharing umbrellas, like, hey, we need to get you guys safe. We need to get you safe. It only lasted 5 minutes. And after that, a rainbow appeared in the sky, centered on the fountain of the park, which was lit up in rainbows itself. It brings me to tears every time thinking about it. But the fact that there was thousands of people that showed out less than a mile away from what had happened that evening into a public park with a rainbow in the sky, with the rainbow lighting everywhere, held the candlelight vigil. The community came together in a way I have never seen or experienced in my entire life. And that was the most magical triumph, that no matter what anybody could try to do to us, the fact that we could come together, and even the nature itself was like, nah, let's celebrate. There's no goodness in the world is one of the most magical moments I have ever experienced in the LGBT community.
That's seriously amazing. I just like to point out, the song just hit the best part. It was like, it just swelled with you. That's good to see, though. Hawk, I think your hand shot up next before Rod's went.
Yeah, I'll talk about this. So like, I have mixed feelings about not about the community as a whole, but the concept of the community, because ultimately, it is beautiful, the moments when like a large group of people who share a similar feeling of loneliness can come together and do something beautiful, and kind of turn their own personal trauma into something beautiful for the world and make the world a better place. But something I kind of try to remember is like the LGBTQIA plus community as a whole, and this giant umbrella that we have is basically a way of saying like, we're all people who have been hurting, who have been treated wrong by society for a while now. And so it's sort of like this necessity almost to come together and protect each other, and this sort of common struggle. But it's not like a unified community per se, because like when people talk about like there being an agenda and like stuff, I always picture this like dark back room where we all have our weekly meetings, which of course I saw you all there last Tuesday, so you know. But it's just, we can turn our pain into something beautiful. And I think one of the best parts is the fact that this does raise awareness, and this gives people to look up to say like, this is someone like me, that I didn't know there was anyone like me, like with Rod discovering Amvis gender. This beautiful ability to find similarity amongst their differences is just honestly the best part for me.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. I think Rod, you had your hand up as well, right?
Yeah, because when you first asked this question, I was kind of sort of dumbfounded with silence, because I'm like, what's good about our community? And it's just like, it feels like there are as many people that I don't agree with / hate in our community as there are people that I love. So it becomes a complicated question, because we're not just all together great, you know?
No, I know. You always have your bad apples and anything that's out there. Yep.
Definitely. But like, if I can borrow like a page from like Wolfie and like share a story, because like I feel like, and I might cry, and if I cry, I am allowing you to laugh.
No, there's no laughing here if you cry.
But like, I feel like having been a part of like the community has also really showed me like moments where like we're really human, like what being a human or part of humanity is all about. And like when I was in high school, I went to an all boys Jesuit high school. So that used to be a military school. So it was very strict, very regimented, very being a man is XYZ, very religious. And at the time, I myself was proudly religious. Like I believed in everything that I read, like it was my faith, etc. And I was really, really struggling because my homosexuality was like really coming through. I couldn't put it away, like back in its neat little box that it came from. And it was causing me a lot of pain and suffering because like I knew my parents weren't going to react well if I came out to them. And I knew what my religion said about my feelings. And I knew that like every fiber of my being was like, logically, this is wrong. Why aren't you fixing it? And then, so like all my grades were tanking, of course, because I'm falling apart as a person. And like what I didn't notice was that how I interacted with people was also suffering because like when you're really deep in your depression, but you're trying to fake it, like people who have even experienced like an ounce of what you're going through will see it. Like, like we're all like, we've been there. And what I didn't know, so like I was in the band for like the high school band for like all 4 years. And I think this was like sophomore or junior year. It has to have been junior year of high school. Like I was just like in the band room before band practice having a really rough time. And in the band, like the pianist in the band had been sort of someone who had sort of seen me since I was a freshman. Because he himself was like a year older than me. So at this point he was a senior and he and I had never talked. And like, I had like, this is like a problematic term now, but like in my mind, I'm like, my gaydar is telling me he's gay as well, but I don't know. I just like assume he is. But we've never had a discussion. We're not friends. And then, so like this really hard day, he like walks up to me and he's like, Rod, before like practice starts, can we like sorry.
You're okay. It's okay.
I'm gonna talk while I cry, which is really uncomfortable. But he was like, can you like see me behind like the seats? And I was like, yeah, of course. And I was like, what is this about? Like I've never spoken to this guy. And then like before practice, I like walk over and I'm like, no idea what to expect. And then like I turn and I see him standing there and he's holding up a notebook and it says like, it's okay, I am too, like written on it. And like, I totally broke down kind of like right now.
It's okay.
As a person, because it was like, I was just looking for I didn't know that I was like looking for a moment like this from someone. And like he totally like saw right through me, even though I was like doing so much work to show that like I was okay. And like he like saw me start to cry and then he hugged me really awkwardly because he is not he's not a person who shows physical affection. He's like, yes, I should. It's like, do I? Like, couldn't just like love him standing there, and like, I was like, thank you, and he was like, you got it. And then like, what's funny is like, we didn't become friends after that. We actually didn't even start talking at all after that. It was just like, he saw that I was suffering because of the same way he was, and he's like, I want somebody to have this moment that I wish I had, and like I think about it all the time. Like we're not friends. Nothing ever sprung from that. Like I guess in a movie we'd be like best friends and like like real life isn't like that, and I didn't really need that from him. He sort of gave me all I could ask for. And like validation sign, and like seeing me as a person. And like I was just like, I've never known somebody I've never just experienced such kindness, like I'm just like reaching out and touching another person in a way. So like that's what I would say. It's like there's like really human moments that I've experienced.
No, that's also. Thank you for sharing
Thank you.
that with us. Yeah, I was like, don't worry. No one's gonna laugh when you're crying or any stuff that happens with us. We appreciate you sharing these type of stories because there's bound to be
There's
somebody that's
value.
out
There's
there.
so much value in these stories.
Yeah, that's gonna be like, holy shit.
That's me.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's super impactful. So thank you.
Yeah, I don't want to go into the details because I'm gonna cry too, and I'm not about to cry right now. But I'm like already teary from that story. But I want to say that I had a very similar experience, very very similar, and I'm also not friends with that person. But it like, I don't want to say like saved me. Like I wasn't in trouble, but like it did in a way. Like it opened my mind. I was like, oh, like wow, like we're human, and like. This is just part of like our experience of like finding ourselves and like it, you know, it was just weird because I felt like very detached because I had so many like things just like fighting internally. So I don't know where I was going. I don't know. I guess a little kindness goes a long way is the whole point of this. So
No, yeah.
Yeah.
Kindness is free. Spend it.
Please.
So no, that's good. Before I move on from this, I want to make sure that everyone had a chance to kind of talk about what they did because I know that this is kind of like big story time. So that's why I was like, if everyone is okay, I'll move on. But if someone has something they want to say, I want to leave the floor open for a second. Ashlyn, Hawk?
I mean, yeah, I guess. Like, I guess nothing is like impactful as any of that at all. But the internet helped me a lot, which is so silly. But like being on like social media from quite a young age made me realize like it was okay because I grew up in a super accepting household. Like I knew everything would be fine. But like when I was a kid, I used to, this is so dumb, I used to watch the All the Things She Said music video by Tattoo on loop in my room and be like, wow, because it's two women kissing and be like, ooh, and then scared I'd get caught, but I knew it'd be okay. But seeing learning that other girls went through the exact same experience, especially that music video, taught so many women being like, oh my God, girls. Like seeing other people go through this exact same experience made me realize like, oh shit, it ain't just me. Like I was super allowed to know about everything. Like I wasn't sheltered in any way of that, but I still just in my little head thought it was like weird or something. But just knowing other people went through the exact same thing made me realize like, oh no, this is cool. I can be out and happy and people will accept me. Even though I knew that already, I just needed like the confirmation. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. Thank you. All right. I was like, Hawk, I'll pass it over to you if you had something. Yep.
Yeah. These stories all kind of share a similar thread of like being able to see someone else going through what you're feeling and feeling validated and feeling accepted and feeling like, okay, they did it, I can do it kind of thing. I have sort of like an opposite story, which is that to sort of emphasize the damage that can be done by language over the course of someone's life. Of like, I also grew up in an accepting household. Like, something in my brain always told me that everything was going to be fine, but there was an even louder voice that told me like, no, you can't tell any. Not good. Okay. Like, bad down the hatches. Don't show any vulnerability. And I realized as I got older that voice came from, as much as my family told me like, oh yeah, you can tell us anything, whatever, we'll always love you. I saw how other people treated people based on these assumptions. Like I went to summer camp and there were these two boys who were like best friends, and the entire camp ridiculed them and called them gay as a negative thing. Yeah. The whole time. And like seeing how they were treated just for being friends, like really good friends and close to each other, made me sit there and think about my friendship with like my friend who that was the like that year when that happened was the year that we kind of like started to sort of fracture and like move away from each other. Like we found other friends because I think he was kind of going through the same thing of like, oh, well, what if people make assumptions about us? As a sort of self-preservation thing, we sort of moved apart. And then in high school, like it was a constant thing of just like people being like using gay as an insult. And I know for me personally, I realized I was gay between middle school and high school. Like I went in high school going like, well, I kind of have discovered this about myself. But I spent the entirety of high school trying to convert myself. And there, without going into too much detail, it involved a lot of like self-hatred and at times self-harm to try and like just change who I was instead of accepting who I was. And I remember when I went to college, I told this story in front of an entire auditorium full of people for this like portrait gallery thing. Because part of like the portrait gallery was we had to write basically slogans on our bodies that meant something to us. And I wrote, the hardest person to tell was myself, or the hardest person to come out to was myself, because I spent 4 to 6 years of my life hating myself and trying to change myself silently, quietly, because I was so scared of other people finding out. And then when I finally told my friends and I told my family, like I told my dad and he barely looked away from World of Warcraft. He was like, yeah, whatever, you're gay. Was that, how does that affect me? Let me level.
Yeah, does this help me with my raid or what? Yeah.
Right. Everything ended up being okay for me, as like a part of me always knew it would, but there was this huge societal pressure around me of like, no, you can't trust these people. Like you can't trust anyone. They may say one thing, but then the second you reveal the truth to them, they're going to turn on you. And I lived with that like hanging over me for 6 years until I was like, you know what, if they want to change their opinion of me based on that, then that's their problem.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be who I want to be, or who I am. And I'm gonna be loud about it. And ever since then I have.
Yeah. No, it's interesting that you say like, right, how too close boys can be percepted like that. Because I remember I had a friend kind of in the similar case that you were, and I remember like, and I feel awful about it now, but it's like I remember like I was at his house and we had to go to sleep, and he was like, "Hey, you just sleep on the bed with me. It's fine. It's whatever." In my head, right, because I had all those people, just like you talked about, like that negative, damaging language. I was like, "Oh my God, like I'm about to sleep in another bed with a guy." Completely platonically, we were like kids. We were just gonna. It was this gigantic ass bed. We were just gonna go to sleep and wake up the next morning and play more video games. Like, but right, you had that thought in your head, and I remember that's why I quit gymnastics as well, because I was like, oh my God, people are gonna think that I'm gay or something. And I remember just having those like feelings of like, well, I can't let people think that. And now I look back at that going, Zach, you could have been doing fucking flips and shit, and instead you let that type of mentality get to you. And it's hard, right, because like we have so much of like, I think maybe y'all can be a better understanding or a better gauge of it, but like it seems like things are getting a little bit better of trying to be like, we don't use quite as much damaging language, at least from what I've seen, but obviously everyone's gonna have a different viewpoint on that. But it's like, now I see people that are doing awesome gymnastics, and who cares if you sleep in the same bed, because it's whatever, right?
I think it's dependent upon who you surround yourself with as well, because if you're surrounded with toxic people, there's plenty of toxic people who will still say toxic things. Yeah.
So it's just interesting that, like, I just had that moment of like, I wasn't alone in that same mentality of just like that negative pressure that's kind of just there in society sometimes, and you just don't see
masculinity.
Yeah.
It's a nice cocktail of toxic masculinity and homophobia.
Yeah.
That impacts like boys. It's really terrible.
Yeah.
And girls too, but specifically in your case.
Well, yeah, but exactly, like that type of message goes out to a lot of people, and it's just like, I wish these type of conversations were things that, happened at a younger age. And not saying that, my parents ever did anything that was weird with it. It was just the society outside of that. Cartoons had messages with it. We had all that type of stuff that was just like, whoa. And now, when I, a lot of you all see this now when I leave chats and stuff, I'm like, all right, love you guys, have a great, love y'all, excuse me. I hope you have a great time, whatever, right? I'm totally okay with that, and I don't care because I understand where that's, where that's at now, and I think it's fine, But I don't know, just kind of an interesting thought process. So, I want to switch gears just a little bit here, and I wanted to kind of pose the question to you all about how can allies of the community, what can we do to help empower your community more? What can we do as allies that can actually help the community, or what should we do?
Or what makes
what makes a good ally
besides just being ally.
Yeah, we're here.
We
Ooh,
made it.
Yeah, go for it, Rod.
Yeah, I would say not easy step, but one that I would love to see is allies taking more action with the knowledge that they're given. And I always cite the example of you, Zach, about how you had the LGBTQIA tag and then you removed it, and then you changed to say ally in your stream title because the conversation around that is happening about how a lot of us don't like that straight allies will use that tag because we're using it to look for each other, not necessarily allies, and that statement alone is enough to set a lot of people off or have them understand it the wrong way. So that conversation also needs to happen, but you also want the extra step and told your friends about turns out we shouldn't use this, and I know plenty of people who would call themselves allies who would just change it for themselves and then tell no one else. Not have the uncomfortable conversation of letting their straight ally friends know, hey, you shouldn't be using the tag, because it sort of feels like you're inviting tension that isn't really necessary, quote unquote, into your friendship with them. And I understand the apprehension, but it's if you are going to call yourself an ally, it does mean that you take on some of the uncomfortableness that we have, and you live with that with us.
I remember I had a very public conversation about this actually in Chonky's Discord because I wanted to understand.
Was it my Discord?
Yeah, it was actually your Discord. I had a very, very public conversation about it because I was like, I want to understand. Please help. And I had a bunch of people that were like, here's why. And I was like, the light went off in my head. Because here was the problem that I had. It was an ignorance to the A I thought was ally. It wasn't until I started doing more research and I had some more stuff happening that I was like, oh, okay. Twitch's own definition behind that tag is for allies too. And it's not. It's not supposed to be. It's for asexual and avis gender and everything else that falls underneath with A. And I was like, holy shit, I'm an asshole. And I remember I immediately was like, thank you. Yeah, A for asshole. No, but I immediately knew, I was like, I need to take this type of stuff out of it. And then I was like, I went to my Discord and I was like, hey y'all, this is the type of stuff. I don't remember if I did a Twitter thing with it. I might have. But then I had conversations with people. And Rod, and I think kind of what you're talking about with that inviting tension, honestly, I kind of seek that. Because I want to be able to have these type of uncomfortable kind of conversations, just like we're doing now, because I think this strengthens the networking bond that people have created together. Because if you're able to have these type of conversations that are, kind of uncomfortable, if they're able to have the same conversation and you have a healthy discussion, those are great friends. Those are great people to have in your network of people. But if they're like, well, I'm not changing it, I get people that come in and be like, oh my goodness, thanks for using it doesn't matter. Now you're just going for the clout, and obviously you don't give a shit.
The way I look at it is I'm not a very confrontational person in and of myself, but one example I have is just of an old coworker of mine and someone walking in with a pride like face mask and then being like, I don't understand why they can wear that, and just me being like, what does that have to do with you or our job? You know, you can have your nasty opinions, but if I have to sit next to you, you're not going to speak them out loud, because in my mind, silence is agreement, and if I didn't say anything, it would be like agreeing with her, like,
You gotta call it out.
Yeah, why would you be wearing something like that? And I don't agree with stuff like that. So
Okay. Wolfie, go ahead, buddy.
So I'm trying to think of the phrasing on how I can say this, because I don't want it to come across wrong or anything like that. I think one of the biggest things about being an ally is recognizing that there is more to me than my sexuality. I am more than just my sexuality, because there's a lot of people, a lot of friends that whenever I'm like, hey, this is who I am, they're like, oh, okay, well, I'm an ally. And literally the only thing that they will now talk to me about is specifically the LGBTQ community. Here's the latest news. They'll introduce me, this is my gay friend. I am an ally. I'm helping support this. And it's like, hey, it's wonderful to take action and talk about it, but I am more than that.
Yeah.
Like, we can talk about other things. Being an ally doesn't mean you can only discuss this one topic with me, because there is more to my life than just who I am as my identity. And so I think it's really important to find a balance as an ally, is recognizing that there's a place and a time for speaking and action, and another place just to be my friend.
Yeah. No, I think that's an excellent point, that so many people are just like, they almost fixate on that. And it's like,
it's because I have to prove to you that I'm an ally. And I have to remind you constantly that I am, and I'm here for you, and I'm on your side, instead of just like
always, hey, I'm here,
being your friend, and if you know something were to happen, standing up for you and the community.
And I'll kind of harken back to what Hawk had said earlier. If the vibe ain't there,
Bye.
Yep. No, I appreciate that feedback. I wasn't sure if anybody else had anything before I go to the next thought that I had, which might be one of the last ones that we'll get into before we take a trip to Gaming Town here. Anybody? Game Town. Okay. So something that actually somebody had said earlier in chat, which would have been Angelo, had made a question and kind of had asked, like, I don't remember exactly what the question was, but the end of the statement was, you want to bang. And obviously not everybody has to answer this question. If you don't feel comfortable, please don't. How do you find partners in that community? Is it just as simple of like sometimes like how we would, and we just, just a connection's made and it goes from there? Or like how does that happen? Like, yeah, go for it, Hawk. I figured you'd have something to say here.
So I have a bit of like a double-edged sword with how I found partners, because I am terrified of rejection, and I'm terrified of making assumptions about people, and coming to someone with an assumption of like, oh, this is another gay man, let me interact, and then finding out that I was horribly mistaken. Like maybe they are straight, or maybe they are not even male. And so for me, I typically use dating apps because I can very specifically be like, okay, this is a bunch of people coming to the same place for the exact same thing. So it kind of removes that ambiguity of like, okay, this possible like mistaken identity sort of thing. But the double-edged sword part of it is the downside to apps is because they are so specific, they tend to in of themselves be problematic. Like you very frequently hear about apps for gay men dating to be very transphobic, whether the community or the app itself. The way it's designed. And because a lot of these apps are built with sexuality in mind and not gender, and the umbrella that, or maybe not the umbrella, but the spectrum that exists within gender that these apps don't really consider. So while it does narrow things down and be like, okay, well, there's less of a chance of me making a mistake or someone else making a mistake or getting into something that they didn't know that they're getting into. It does also limit me in the fact of like, okay, well, I go on these apps and there's a strong possibility that I won't be able to meet like the trans man of my dreams, because the apps themselves are built as a platform that marginalize an already marginalized group even further.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that.
I'd like to speak as well.
Yeah, go for it.
I guess before I say what I was going to say originally, I would like to follow up with that and say that, because I'm also bisexual. I don't think I actually said that out loud today, but going on like Tinder, for example, as like a woman seeking a woman, I feel like there's like way too many straight girls there, like trying to look for a bestie, and then also way too many couples trying to look for like a third.
Yeah.
And like, it's really like frustrating. But then on the flip side, this is what I was gonna say originally, is like my experience dating women in real life is also pretty bad, because I would say that oftentimes I mistake straight girls being nice for like gay girls flirting with me, which like doesn't work, because I realized that they're straight, and I'm like, this is so uncomfortable, like I don't what were we doing, like why are you talking to me like that? So I don't like, there's no answer to this, I'm just sharing an experience.
No, and that's totally fine. It's like sometimes it can just literally be, here's a story, because right, it's interesting because like I hear so many stories about just, you know, people on Tinder doing their thing, or you know, I guess even on my side, I guess I don't know, you just kept looking at me, so I knew to be like, well, let's see where this goes. And so I was just kind of curious about, of, you know, like, are you able to make a connection with somebody first and kind of see where it goes, or like, do you kind of have to use something that pinpoints the conversation a little bit? I think Wolfie had them up, and then I'll go to Ash. So Wolfie, go ahead.
So on my end, I feel like I am very much in the Midwest, and it can be exceedingly dangerous to try to find a partner in the Midwest, because we still have people that are beaten and murdered for being gay. And to the point where you literally can't even go into a gay specific club and assume that people in there will be gay, because, or any form of sexuality, I should just say specifically gay, or any form of sexuality, because there have been times where I've approached somebody and they're like, no, dude, I'm straight. And I'm like, okay, but this is literally an LGBT bar. So my apologies for assuming I shouldn't have done that. And so and that is entirely my fault, but I have to be very careful even on apps, because there have been reports even in my local area where, people who are targeting the LGBT community are specifically going on those apps to lure people. And so for me, it's all about like, I can't just start texting you, and if you're in my local area, meet you within a few days. I actually have to form a connection over a series of a much longer period of time to make sure you really are who you are and really a genuine person before I can even feel safe meeting you.
Yeah. Okay.
So it becomes more difficult in that way, but that's just my experience.
Ashlyn, I know you had something.
Yeah, I think things for particularly people that identify as bisexual or pansexual, I think things can get really hard when trying to date, because it's a really uncomfortable conversation, but there's a lot of biphobia and panphobia within our community that we need to discuss. Because I've had experience like that. My friends have had experiences where it's like, I don't want to date you because you're bi. Because there's the perception that if someone's bi or pan, they're more likely to cheat, which is just stupid. But it's such a large perception within our community that we need to discuss more. And it makes me so angry. And also the fact that I've had this particularly with straight men saying, oh, because you're into women as well, am I more likely to get a threesome? And that's why they want to date you, because they kind of fetishize that. And then, particularly my experience with gay women thinking it's a phase and we're just going to go to a man, because the perception is that we're just going to fool around with a girl for a bit and then be like, I don't really want to date you, I want to be with a man. So I think that's a conversation that
Okay.
within our community we need to have a lot, especially within dating, because I know a lot of bi people feel extremely uncomfortable in queer spaces because we don't feel like we're accepted in our own community a lot of the time.
Trying to think of the right way to ask this. Do you have to sometimes almost hide that you're bi, and you're like, if you're like in, let's say you're in a relationship with another woman, you're like, oh, I'm lesbian, or if you're in a relationship with a man, you have to feel like you're, oh, I'm straight. Do you ever feel like you had to hide your, like, you being bisexual just to not feel like you've had to have this like weird tension thing? Or have you always been very, this is me, get with it or get out?
I mean, I've always been really forward with it because I think if someone's particularly biphobic, I don't want to waste my time.
Yeah.
I'd just rather not deal with that negative energy. And I've been really lucky with Norton that he's like super accepting. It's like, yeah, cool, I don't care. And I also, with a lot of people, don't like the fact that I am dating a man and that I'm engaged to a man, but that doesn't negate the fact that I'm still bisexual. I'm still into women.
Yeah.
I'll still see a girl down the street and be like, she's cute. Like that doesn't, just because I'm engaged to a man doesn't get rid of that in my head.
Yeah.
So I just kind of am forward with it because if they're biphobic, I don't want to waste my time on someone like that at all.
Okay. Yeah. And the reason I want.
Oh.
Okay. Oh no. Go ahead. Go Chunky.
Oh wait, no. If you have something to say, I could follow up after.
Nah. Go for it.
Okay, I was gonna say, this kind of like, for me, will wrap back to something we talked about earlier with just like the LGBTQ community like as a whole. But I feel very similarly, being bisexual and feeling like not exactly fully accepted. When I would go to like Pride, IRL pre-pandemic, I had this one person who's like not a friend anymore, who used to like harp on this thing, like calling me like gay all the time, which is like, yeah, like 50% of my identity. Like, you know what I mean? I'm not gay, but like,
Yeah.
yes, I do like women. And it was really frustrating because it would be like, I'd be at Pride and like, they would just not want to talk about me being bisexual, or like they would try to erase the bisexuality aspect. And then like being among, I guess, like straight friends too, is kind of this like, for them, novelty. Like, I don't know, like if I was like at a party and like kind of flirting with a girl, they'd be like, ooh, instead of just let me just do my own thing at a party, like I'm just being myself at a party. And oh, sorry, the way it connects is that I feel like being online has really helped because I've been able to find people that are like accepting and like-minded, and have been able to, I guess, kind of like realize I don't need to keep those people in my like circle, or like, you know what I mean? And like that's just like a dark side of the community, but it's not representative of the whole.
Well, and I think
that's yeah.
Okay, sorry. I was like, I wanted to make sure you were done before I said something. I think it kind of goes back to what, you know, Rod was even kind of talking about earlier, about like there are just sometimes just bad apples that are in any space. I remember having a conversation with both Hawk and Rod about this the other day on stream when I asked a question pertaining to furry communities, and just like understanding that there are some people that are just awful human beings no matter where you're at. I mean, I you know, being a white straight male myself, right? I see this all the time.
There's awful.
There's awful people in whatever community that you'd want to wrap, right? If I had to wrap myself into something, there's a lot of people I would not want to be associated with myself. And I think it's important that we take a look at ourselves and do some introspective thinking of, do I want to be around certain type of people? You know, and that's why I like to have those kind of tension-y topics, because I either learn these are great people and I want to do great things with this person, or I learn, you know, I'm out.
Yeah, and your friends say a lot about you as a person.
Yeah.
And if you keep those kinds of people in your life,
one, it's going to affect you, and it's going to affect you you know, and in many different ways. It'll affect you as just how other people perceive you, and it'll affect you, you know, personally as well. So now, before we move on to the next kind of segment, I'll say it that way, before we get into kind of a lighter topic section with Jackbox. Did anybody have anything they'd like to say kind of as a closing statement about anything that we have talked about today? It can be, hey, like, oh, right, Rod, I was gonna vamp for a second. Go for it. You're ready.
I got you. Thank you. I guess, like, to build off of, like, your last point, it's just that, like, if you're, like, new to, like, the LGBT community and, like, you're learning, like, first to, like, understand that there are just people who ruin it for everyone. Like, I feel like when I first came out to my straight friends, they were like, wait, so, like, there are gay people you don't like? And I'm like, yeah, like, we're not all joined together, kumbaya. Like, there are so many people in this community that I would just attack on sight, like, hateful people. Like, just because we're in a word together, like in a acronym together, doesn't mean we are together, you know? And so, like, you have to have, like, there's, like, a level of patience that you always have to have as, like, a queer identifying person with somebody who's straight, who may have had their only experiences with people like us be really bad, be really assaulty and stuff, that you just have to be like, I understand, you know? And also, like, vice versa. And, like, just, like, try and see where people are coming from, and also understand that, like, no matter what, since we're all people, there are good people and there are really, really bad people. It's like, being in a community that is collectively progressive doesn't make us all good. And, like, that's like I guess that's the point that Uzak understood when Hawk and I were talking about the furry community, which is full of some awful people that I, like, even though I, like, happily, like am a furry, like, I wouldn't, like, I totally get the stigma, because there are people, you know, it's just like, people make things complicated. Like, being a person is complicated. And so it's like, maybe you will never land on a topic where, like, everyone agrees, you know, and, like, where there's a simple answer that you can all get upon with a group of us. And, like, that's just like the way it is, kind of. There's no, like, neat little ribbon for a lot of these topics and a lot of the ways we feel. And that's just part of the experience.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. Wolfie, go for it.
So something that I kind of think is really important. It was something that, honestly, the first time I ever heard it, kind of, like, broke me down a little bit, made me cry, was actually very recently at work. Is that, and before I get into that part, I want to make sure people know, like, it's okay to not know who you are as a person right away. It's okay to be in your teens, middle ages, late ages, even, it doesn't matter if you're 2 or 82, to not fully recognize or understand your own sexuality or pronouns. There is no specific time limit for it. There is not, like, hey, by the 13th day of your 21st birthday, you're going to know exactly who you are. It's not a thing. So it's definitely okay. It has been foretold. It is inscribed in the stone. And some of the greatest ways is whenever you find communities like these, one of the most fun ways, and one of the ways that I've discovered some of my pronouns, the way that I discovered that I prefer they, them pronouns, is actually by going into the Twitch trans, just saying, hey, this is what I prefer today. Would you mind addressing it that way? But regardless of what happens in your life, it's important to make sure everybody in this chat knows you are valid as who you are. You are a valid individual. And you are more than what other people define you as. And it's important for you to discover yourself and be the best version of you that you can be.
Thank you, Wolfie. I appreciate that. Go ahead, Hawk.
Just to tie together a few things that have been said so far, it's just like sort of hearkening back to what I said earlier about we're all joined together by our own trauma, but that doesn't make us a cohesive unit. So, like, at the end of the day, we're all people. People are people, which means we're all just kind of like collections of our experiences and our traumas and our perceptions. And so, yeah, you end up with bad people in any group. But also, something that I think is important is that we're all kind of works in progress. You're never maybe not never, but like very rarely do you meet someone who's so put together that they got it. They nailed it. They're like, first draft, best draft, submit it to the teacher. I'm done. As a human being, I have reached perfection. And like, I think having these conversations is really good, but there's this sort of complication with it where people start to focus on the destination rather than the journey. They don't see themselves as like a work in progress. They don't see themselves as someone who's, just living a life and figuring things out and whatever. They start to like attribute hard labels to people, and going back to bisexuality and how hard it is for people who identify as bisexual, in both straight community at large as well as the LGBTQIA plus community, because they really get it from both sides of just like the straight community will sit there and look at them and be like, well, you're just gay. You're just lesbian. You're just whatever. And then the LGBTQIA plus community will look at them, even though they are an initial in the acronym, will still look at them and just be like, oh, you're just confused. You're really a lesbian. You're really gay. Like, no, don't. Stop looking at someone as, oh, they're transitioning to this one thing, and I'm just going to call them that one thing because I think that's where they're going to end up anyway. Meet people where they are in their journey. Wherever they are, that's who they are. Don't attribute your own perceptions and assumptions to it of like, well, they're going to end up gay anyway. It's like, no, they're a person with their own experiences, and it's created the person you see today. And if they change later, that's their business. Like, meet them who they are right now and enjoy the person that you got to meet today.
Thank you. Yeah.
I always piggyback, but piggybacking off of that, I have a fun exercise for everyone, I guess, in chat, and maybe a little more directed at people that like are cis and identify with like the assigned gender at birth, is to think about, what do you love about your gender, and like what makes you happy to say that you are the gender that you are. I feel like a lot of times, like we're born and then we're given these labels, right? And we just kind of accept them because we're a kid, we don't like know or whatever, and we grow up for however long until we maybe, like, I feel like some people start to realize maybe that they are gay, or that they're bi, or that they don't feel like the gender that they were assigned, right, early on. And some people maybe don't necessarily know because they just like hold this truth in their head. They've never bothered to question it. So I guess like a fun exercise is to like think about like the labels you would assign yourself, and like think about what makes you happy about them, and make sure that you're happy with them. And it's not a problem if you aren't, you know what I mean? It just gives you room to consider, because really ultimately it's about you being happy with like your identity and knowing why you are your identity too. So
no, thank you for passing that on. That's a really interesting exercise to just kind of like what we talked about earlier, just be a little introspective and look within. Yeah,
because you can come out the same. Like, it doesn't mean you'll change, but like at least then you'll know why, and there'll be some comfort,
Yeah. Ashlyn, any closing statements before we head on?
Yeah, I guess like yeah, just kind of like what everyone said, really. Like, you don't have to know now. You don't have to know in 6 months' time. Like, you're never gonna have it all together. Like, there's still some times where I'm laying in bed, I'm having a really bad day. I'm like, am I really bi? Were all them people online right? But then I'm like, no, you look at Hayley Williams and you're extremely in love with her. Like, of course you're bi. And like, you'll never be 100% there, and that's okay. Like, yeah, I identify as bisexual, but I still identify with queer, because there may be a time where I change that, and my perception of myself may change. And especially with gender, my perception of that's been changing so much lately, because I've always been into the idea of androgyny, and I think that's amazing, and I've always been in love with it, and how I perceive myself has always been slightly androgynous. And I think that's okay to not know. And it's, yeah, I'm just repeating myself, but yeah, it's okay not to know or be okay. And you'll get there to a point where you are comfortable, and that's fine.
Yeah. I think what I have on my side is just, and this is just kind of an overall statement to, I think, everybody. I always live by the golden rule of life. Do unto others as you wish to upon yourself. Which means that you should treat others how you would like to be treated. Kindness is free. Spend it willingly. And have at it. There's a reason that in the Plenty of Peeps community, we have a very specific saying that I've been trying to use more and more frequently because I think it means a lot. Amat omni. It's Latin for love all. And that's what you should do.